Talking all that jazz with G Fields. We here today at the Bridges Hip Hop. Before we get into anything, I like to let y'all know that Bridges Hip Hop is when you bridge the gap between something old and something new. So my show today is about foundation. I like to talk about the root, the foundation of music and business and everything else. So today we're here with a special guest, the one and only English.
Hey guys.
You know. So today we're gonna get right to the nitty gritty. B English is an artist. Roots came from gospel. Her mother is a
Absolutely.
international gospel singer. So, with that being said, I want to know how you got started. With music, and tell us about a little bit of that foundation you got from that church.
Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Um, Music has just been a part of my life, my whole life. My mom is an amazing, amazing gospel singer. I was probably about 7 or 8 when she started touring. I grew up in the church, so I mean, from the moment that I heard that I can sing, I was singing somebody's song, and I was like, I kind of sound like them. And I was like, okay, maybe I got a little something going. From that moment, it was in my spirit. That was it. Music was my life. And I grew up in a church singing in the choir, just,
So is it
everything
something?
music.
Is it something special you thought or felt that you had because your mother was a gospel singer? So, what made you? What sparked you? Tell me something that your mother did or something that happened in church that really gave you that burning desire to become an artist.
She played a big part in it because I was so young, so every rehearsal that she went to, I had to go to. So I literally would sit there and listen to her. Shout out to the Glory Gospel Singers. It was
Shout out to the
WW,
Glory Gospel Singers.
WWRL Community Chorale is what they started as. But they would sing, and I would sit there and mimic their songs, and just seeing the passion and the commitment that they had in the music, like it really, really touched my soul. I just connect music with every feeling that I have. If I'm sad, if I'm happy, there's a song for every emotion that I go through. So music is just, it's in me. It's who I am. But yeah, my mom definitely, she's a soprano.
Oh,
She's an opera singer. So listening to her range, and just how beautiful her voice is, it inspired me. It
that's
definitely
good.
inspired me. I didn't want to be a singer because she's a singer. I just knew.
It got in your spirit
Yes,
early.
it was definitely
How
my
old were you?
spirit.
How old were you?
Probably about 8. Probably about
Nice.
8 or 9. Yeah.
That's the foundation right there.
Yeah.
8 years old,
Definitely.
mother, famous gospel singer.
Right.
You got it in your spirit earlier on. Now, you know, fast forward a little bit. You're 8 years old. Your mother's, is she on tour yet, or is she still in the church at this moment?
She just got back from tour. In June, she went to Jerusalem, Israel. She
No, no,
toured.
no, no, no. Let's back up. I mean, when
Oh.
you were 8 years old.
So when I was 8, she wasn't on
Okay.
tour. They were more of a community chorale where they were going around and ministering and singing at different, doing concerts, just singing at different churches. She went on her first tour when I was 15. She went to
Okay.
Germany. She was
Okay.
gone for 3 months.
So our first tour was an international tour.
It was an international tour.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. She was in Germany for 3 months. Yeah. I mean,
I've had the pleasure to meet your mother. Miss Sharon is a very, very nice lady, and she has a super ear. And I remember
does.
being in the studio, and we were working on a track for you, and we were trying to come up with a melody and just trying to figure out the key of the record.
Right.
And she was in there cooking, and she just walked in, and bam, we was trying to figure that thing out. She walked in 2 seconds and gave you the key
Right.
to the record. So that was amazing, man. Like, just to know you for the last 20 years of your life and see your progress and see you growing is wonderful.
Yes.
It's wonderful. So,
Thank
with that being said, I want to talk about bridging the gap. Here it is where, you're 8 years old, your mother's a gospel singer, you get into your teenage years and you got hip hop, you got, R&B, you got all these other different genres of music. So tell me what that was like trying to transition to fall in love with this type of music, because I know that was your era and everything was trendy. How was it, making that transition? Because gospel, for one, I know, me growing up in the church, shout out to Rachel Tate, my grandmother, put me in church earlier on. I know that it's a spiritual thing, and then they try to ground you in that. So it's almost like when you listen to another type of music, they don't really like that.
Absolutely.
So tell me what that friction was like.
Absolutely. It's been difficult. Honestly, it's still difficult because growing up in the church, I always thought, okay, I know I want to sing. What genre do I want to be in? Do I have to sing gospel because I grew up in a church and my mom's a gospel singer? Can I sing R&B? Are they going to look at me funny? So it's still a little bit of a struggle because as an artist, I love R&B music. I relate a lot to R&B music. I think it was more where my emotions were. I'm like, okay, R&B, this is where I want to be because I connect to the songs. But then at the same time, of course, I connect to the gospel music from a spiritual standpoint and just from an emotional standpoint. So it has been a struggle figuring out where to go. But that is kind of like where I question, why do I have to pick? Why can't I do both?
Well, for the simple fact is, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Speaking in terms of, when you were younger and the new music was starting to hit your ear,
Right.
okay? The new music was starting to hit your ear. You coming out of church. Your mother's inspiring you. You're on this gospel, journey.
Right.
And then you're hitting the head with this hip hop R&B, which is the new era music, which is trendy to you, which is, something that you're not, used to. So what I want to know is that transition at that time, what were you thinking? Because I know you fell in love with the Mary J. Bliges and
Absolutely.
all of these other artists, but coming from the gospel genre music, it's a very different antic. It's a different, antics. So tell me, how did you convince your mom that you wanted to like all this other music? You know how gospel singers are and church people are, that they just they didn't really understand that music when it came about, because to them it was foolishness.
Honestly, my mother, and that's the great thing about her, she's just an understanding type of woman.
Oh, wow.
So she never said, no, if you're going to be a singer, you have to sing gospel.
Oh.
Never. She allowed me to be who I was. Anytime I was singing in the house, it wasn't like I couldn't sing R&B. She wasn't one of those, oh, you're singing secular music in my house. She wasn't one of those people. So, I mean, the Mary J. Bliges, I grew up singing the Mary J. Blige, the Mariah Carey, the Destiny's Child back in the 90s, with, a lot of the artists. Wow. And that's what I focused on at that time. I'm like, this is what I feel. Their music is connecting to me more than the gospel in a sense. So that's
But
just
why
what
do
I
you
said.
think that was happening, at that time? You said that, you had this in your spirit,
Right.
with the gospel thing, but now you're getting to a point where you're connecting with a whole nother genre of music. So what I'm trying to figure out was, the transition happened. Did it just naturally happen, or is it something that you just fell out of touch with? Because, as we get older, sometimes we don't like going to church, and we kind of just steer away from the spiritual side, because the spiritual side has a lot of rules, and it grounds you, and it's almost like if you want to kind of cross that line, you kind of look at it like, wow, man, I don't know if I can do that. But you see everybody else dilly and dabbling in, the music and the trendy stuff, and then here it is. You don't want to shame your grandmother, your mother, or whoever in church. So, I can only imagine, growing up, with that type of, spirit, and then all of a sudden wanting to do something totally different, but kind of was on the fence with it, because I myself was brought up in the church, and I heard my first rap record in 1979.
Wow.
Yeah,
You're
born
old.
in 71. I'm not ashamed of my age, 51 years old, and I feel good.
Right.
But just knowing that I had those roots, revival, going to Bible study, going to church. Sometimes going to church and first and last Sundays, tea Sundays, had to be there from Sunday school at
Absolutely.
9 o'clock to like 4 or 5 in the evening. It was like a full-time job. So sometimes, with the gospel, it gave me my roots. So foundation is very important on this show, and that's why I wanted to just kind of go back a little bit on your journey before we got into, you know, the new school and what's
Right.
going on right now, because a lot of people have lost their way. You know, a lot of these new artists have lost their way when it comes to anything, even the gospel artists. You know,
Right.
all the contemporary stuff that's going on. You know, nothing against it. Shout out to Kurt Franklin. Shout out to Donnie McClurkin. Anybody that's out there doing Christian rap, contemporary gospel, it's cool, you know.
Right.
But I come from where the deacons sang. You know, they ain't have a name. They didn't have to be famous. You know, somebody did a hymn in the church. Everybody got up and sang, you know, because
Right.
it inspired them. So, with that being said, the roots is very important. And, you know, the seed, and when you plant a seed, you don't want to forget that tree was a seed before it became this tree with all these olive branches that everybody took from, or all the fruit that people took from.
Right.
You know, so I'm here to try to sustain and keep that foundation going, and just letting everybody know that it's okay to go back and listen to the old.
Absolutely.
And it's okay for the old to listen to the new, because, again, in order to keep things growing, we have to keep watering.
Right.
You know, and I feel like the game right now needs water.
Hmm.
You know, I'm a Pisces, so I'm all about water. You know, not enough will kill you, too much will kill you. You know, you can't
Right.
get away from water, you know what I'm saying? You can't breathe without it. You know, so at the end of the day, I think just keeping the game watered, and not watered down, but keeping it watered, so that the older people know just to keep feeding the younger people and keep guiding them. Because even in gospel, again, you know, you heard the things about Kurt Franklin. Again, shout out to Kurt Franklin, with his son and everything, came up like he's not a human being, and I guess he yelled at his son or whatever, and it was looked down. His music
'Cause
had
he
to be
cursed
judged. Yeah,
and-
because now gospel is a very, very timid subject, or genre of music, because there's certain things you can and cannot do.
Right.
And they're making it okay for rappers to do gospel now, Christian rap, and all these other things, because, you know, it should grow. It should grow. It should never not grow. Like, I just feel like even hip hop, it should continue to grow. But you cannot forget the seed that was
Right.
planted. And some of the people that have, you know, put their lives on the line for music, you know, in the 60s and 70s, where, you know, a lot of these, like Mahalia Jackson, you know, who was responsible for Dr. King's famous speech.
Right.
You know, she the one that told him to do the speech. And this was a famous gospel singer. So gospel is the root. It done been in a lot of places, and it's been historical over and over and over and over, and time and over again. So with that being said, you know, we'll get into a little bit of conversation with you about, you know, working on projects now, and working with certain producers, and it's hard to get certain beats and things like that, because a lot of the producers, they're technical people. They're
Right.
not really musicians, a lot of them. But, you know, the internet and these computers have made it easy to produce.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you're a singer yourself, so you know that it's hard to sing over just a bunch of sounds
Right.
and not have a structure or melody. And I know, coming from gospel, we always had structure. Even if it was just a hymn, it was a melody, and the organ player chimed in with the chord progressions. So it was always there. But we're getting slightly away from it with all of these sounds, and it sounds good and orchestrated sounds that they like. But when you start trying to, you know, structure the music, it's hard to take out
Mhm.
50 sounds
Right.
to make a chorus, to make a bridge, you know, and then they're constantly adding sounds because it sounds good to them, you know. But how do you feel about that?
So let me just say this, because it's not just my mother that I come from. My grandmother and my great grandmother were also singers in the same church. So I grew up watching my mother sit first chair soprano, my grandmother sit second chair behind my mother, my great grandmother, the late Reverend Emma L. Davis.
Shout out.
Right. So I feel, because the thing with singing gospel for me was more of, it was easy. It was easy. It was easier than singing R&B, I'll tell you that, because I connected immediately with the words, or whether it was a hymn, a scripture, and I was able to really take that in and and just sing without thinking. And then with the organist, the pianist, they kind of accompany and they kind of follow you. A lot of times we sang with the pianist. It wasn't tracks. So it was just a lot easier. It is difficult now with beats and all of the, all of the music in the beats and trying to find melodies and arrangements and structure, like you said, verse, hooks. I didn't have to do that with gospel. With gospel, you're singing from your heart, and it was a lot easier.
Yeah, you just watch
definitely a lot
chord
easier.
progressions and
Chord
changes.
progressions.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can with gospel you can hear it. You know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And again, it's a feeling as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
It's
saying?
actually a whole vibe.
It's definitely a feeling as well. It's a whole vibe.
Yeah, it's
It
like
is.
playing the saxophone. The sax it's a vibe. It's meant to be felt, not heard.
Right.
So a lot of times, you see these saxophone players like myself with our eyes closed a lot. And a lot of times people think that's because he's trying to be cool. No, it's actually because it's a few things. For one, we are the only people that cannot look at our instruments while we're playing it. So we have to visualize the horn while we're
playing, right?
We have to visualize it in our head. But at the same time, it's a vibe that you want to get, and you're trying to think about being on the beach while you're playing. You're thinking about it's a whole mood, it's a whole vibe. So
Right.
when you got all these technical sounds coming in and out, it's hard to get a vibe, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Because everything is just being tap, tap, tap coming in. The horn don't match, the guitar's off key. And and it's orchestrated because they orchestrated it that way and it sounds good to them. And then you got all these people that like that orchestrated sound no matter if it's right or not.
Right.
So it's kind of dominant in the industry now. So I want to find a way to bridge that gap, and that's going to be a very hard one for myself because I know that notes are real, and there's no such thing as wrong notes. They're in the wrong places.
Right.
Notes are not wrong. They're just in the wrong places. When you play them in the wrong key, or when you're mixing things that don't match. So at the end of the day, it's kind of hard because these producers are so comfortable with that, and they just kind of feel like they don't need to go back and listen to the Jackie Wilsons, the B.B. Kings, the Mahalia Jacksons,
The foundation.
the foundation.
Right.
I grew up listening to Shirley Caesar.
Me too.
Fred Hammond.
Fred Hammond.
The Reverend James Cleveland. Shout out to the late Reverend James Cleveland.
Lauren.
Yes.
Marvin Sapp.
Marvin Sapp, a lot of
Yolanda
those
Adams.
are the new
Yeah.
people. Yolanda Adams is one that I would like to mention, and I don't know if that may be one of your favorite
I
singers.
love Yolanda Adams.
Yeah, she has stood the test of time. When I say
Absolutely.
that's bridging the gap between the old and the new, because Yolanda can sing the wave in the water,
Right.
and then come back
And then come back
and sing the
give
new
you some-
stuff,
Absolutely.
and give you some Mary J.
Yep.
Can jump on stage with her. I like the sisters.
Clark sisters.
Yeah, the Clark sisters. There has been such amazing talent, when it comes to gospel and the roots of music, and it's between jazz, gospel, blues. All of those genres of music is pretty much the reason why this is going on. This industry is going now because of that.
Right.
I would like to say that gospel was part of my root, but I love jazz. The John Coltrane's and the Charlie Parkers, they all kind of got in my spirit early, but I always had the church in my spirit as well. So, just fast forwarding, to the new era and the new things that are going on. You got some projects yourself that you've been working on, and I know that we are working, towards some amazing music with you soon,
Amazing
to come. And you've been a part of a lot of things we've done here at AMS and Dreams. I just want to say I'm gonna give you your flowers while you're here. Really appreciate your service and everything that you do and have done for the label and for the building and for everything that we do. So I definitely wanted to interview you, today, and we're gonna get into some more conversations about English. And how did you come up with that name English?
Well, my last name is English,
Okay.
so it was a no-brainer when we were, my team. Shout out to AMS, shout out to Alvin Mays,
Shout out to AMS.
shout out to you,
Shout out to
G
Alvin
Fields.
Mays.
I
Shout out to
definitely
BG
appreciate
Fields.
the team. You guys inspire me every day. But it was a no-brainer because my last name is English. We're like, what can we call you? What are you gonna go by? And I'm like, let's just stick to something simple, something, be English, Brittany English. So that's where that
That's
came
cool.
from.
So if you had a favorite instrument, what would that be?
Probably the violin because I used to play the violin. I love the strings and I love the violin. I love the sound of the violin. It's soft. It can be loud. It can be, subtle. It's just there's a feeling, there's a vibe with the violin, and I stopped playing it, but definitely the violin.
The violin. That's a good instrument because it's one of those orchestrated sounds where it is very piercing to the ear, and
It can be.
It can be, So you have to be careful with the violin. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying?
it can
you
also
really-
be sweet
Absolutely.
and soft.
Absolutely. It's just one of those delicate instruments, is what I'm
Right.
saying. And I played in jazz ensemble and orchestra band, and the violin was very strong in that
Right.
area. So at that time, I was really, really trying to figure out, how to implement the sax into band and orchestra because it kind of weirded me out because it didn't give me the soul. And I came from soul, so when I had to make the transition to stuff like playing with violins and things like that,
Right.
it was very difficult. Which brings me to the point of now I'm able to play with this violinist, Joy Black. Shout out to Joy Black.
Shout out to Joy
And
Black.
actually a harpist, Lyrical Holmes. Shout out to Lyrical Holmes. They were two amazing young ladies that I had the opportunity to share the stage with, as you witnessed,
Right.
share the stage with at the Sheen Awards. Saying is to say that the violin that you brought that up, and Joy is a lead violinist, and I've learned a lot now. I've bridged the gap
Yeah.
between what I wasn't comfortable with, and I actually stood on stage with my soprano sax and joined in with the violinist.
Yeah.
So it's funny you brought that up. So that to me was bridging the gap.
Yeah.
And that's what this show is about. Is finding ways to connect things. But from the foundation.
But I also feel like the sax has gospel in it too. When you play,
Oh, absolutely.
there's a lot of soul in it, and it does remind me of certain hymns. I can hear certain, gospel songs in it, so I can understand the relationship between
Yeah.
the saxophone and gospel music as well.
Yeah. Well, gospel is soul.
Right.
Gospel is soul. It's just a different. See, thing is when we start talking spiritual, we start forgetting things, because when we talk spiritual, we want to have all of these restrictions. But if you really look at gospel music, it was from the soul.
Right.
The spirit is part of the soul. Like that's
Absolutely.
all intertwined together. So the sax was built on the human voice. It's the only instrument that's built to mimic the human voice to a T.
Right.
So gospel singers, saxophone players can play gospel singers records
Absolutely.
and lyrics because that's just the nature of the horn, and it can kind of go all over the place. But the violin is a very different instrument, and I appreciate the violin. Shout out to Joy Black again on that violin, girl. And
Beautiful
Lyrical Holmes,
instrument.
again, I wanted to say this. Lyrical Holmes is a great harpist. I have never played with a harpist until I played with Lyrical.
Right.
And when I watch her play, and it's just like the piano, it's actually the inside of a piano. That's all the harp is. So if you can play the harp, you can play the piano. You can play the piano, you can play the harp. The harp is actually easier than the piano. So saying this to say that we have all these great instruments, we have all these great tunes and things that connect us with all these genres of music. You yourself been in R&B, been around hip hop, you've been around, to see a lot of the, changes throughout the music industry. So let's talk a little bit about music business and publishing and things like that. Even gospel artists, need to be educated on those things, because a lot of people get things confused with publishing and copyrights and not knowing that copyright is ownership. Okay, copyright is ownership. It is not publishing.
Publishing.
Okay, publishing is where you get paid out your royalties with your music, and copyright means ownership. So a lot of people have lost their way again, and this is where I need to bridge the gap again. But even with gospel singers, they don't realize that they need to own their music as well. But the problem with gospel music is people want it for free because they say it's from the Lord.
Well, see, a lot of gospel singers rewrite hymns. So,
Where did hymns come?
well, the hymns had to come from somebody, but they're definitely getting, and that's the thing that I love about gospel music. You can take an old hymn and rearrange it, and there's nobody to answer to, in a sense. Like I can get the hymn book and I can pull out some hymns, and if I want to go in the studio and rewrite them and rearrange them.
Well, you don't know that until they hear it.
Yeah, but I
Could get a copyright claim.
from who?
A lot of people.
Came from the hymn.
But the hymns are in a book. Somebody published the book.
Somebody published the book, but there's a lot of gospel singers that have wrote the same songs.
A lot of people have gotten away with copyright
Yeah.
infringement, because a lot of times they have, just people have, a lot of these people died off a long time ago, and sometimes people are just not around to claim it, but you'd be surprised, who will come up and say that they have ownership of that hymn.
Right.
So you better be careful with those
Yeah,
hymns,
yeah.
So fast forward, you are also an amazing chef
Thank you.
and caterer.
Thank you.
So
I
I want to applaud you for being an entrepreneur, for one. You know what I'm saying? An upcoming mogul. All right. So tell us a little bit about your business and everything, because again, this is where we talk about the foundation.
am. Okay.
You cook.
I do.
That's the way to the soul too.
It is the way to the soul.
All right. And soul food.
Soul food.
Okay. So give me a little bit about your business and what you're doing with that.
I've been cooking for a long time. My first meal, I think it was spaghetti when I was like 9.
Shout out to spaghetti.
I do love to cook. I love the reaction of people when they eat my food. I love that they enjoy it. I love that it's touching somebody's soul and spirit. And I love that it tastes good. I am a picky eater, believe it or not. I'm the one that goes to the restaurant and I'm like, this is not right. I need to send that back. So I know that about myself, so I just started remaking the meals that I didn't like at the restaurant at home, and just making like, if they add a little bit of this to that, and if they add a little bit of that to that. And that's how I really started cooking. And then people started to enjoy my food. And when I was seeing the reactions of people and they were asking me to make certain dishes, I was like, okay, well, maybe I got something going here. So it's tiring, but I do love to cook. I love the way it makes people feel. I love that they enjoy my food. I've been cooking probably over 15 years. New York South Taste is my business.
Shout out to New York
Shout
South
out to
Taste.
New York South Taste.
Some
on
amazing food,
IG.
though.
Yes. And I cook anything. If I've never cooked it before, I will research it and I will test it and get it right. So I do cook any culture. I do cook any kind of food. I'm a caterer.
How's the catering business going?
It's going, I mean, I work a regular job, so, catering is on the side, but it's going. I mean, people still call for their orders. Thanksgiving and holidays are around the corner, so I know I've been getting a few calls for the annual dressings and macaroni and cheeses.
And you make your own sauces too.
I do. I make my own sauce for my seafood. I make my own sauce for my spaghetti. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I
From
like
the
to
soul
do some
here.
things from scratch.
From the soul here.
I like to do
Who
some
better to
things
do
from
that
scratch.
than English?
Yes.
Shout out to New
Yes.
York South Taste and Be English and Miss English cooking all that food over
Right.
there. Getting to the soul, getting to the heart and soul. But getting back to the heart and soul of the music and the business. I know that you have some projects coming up, as well as your own podcast called Be Gospel.
Be Gospel. Y'all stay tuned.
Not like the gospel, but Be Gospel.
Yes.
And y'all stay tuned. Shout out to English here. with her new podcast, Be
Yes.
Gospel, coming soon. We like to shout out Devon in the back, man, the cameraman. He's super amazing, man. One Films, man. Y'all got to shout out One Films, man, because this man is the reason why we look so good, man.
Absolutely.
And sound so good. Make sure the audio's still rolling. Yeah, we good.
We good?
Yeah, we good. So, here, man, again, the Bridges Hip Hop. Here we are again here in 2022. Getting ready to go
Wow.
into 23. What have you learned about the music business this year? A lot of deaths. Shout out to Takeoff and everybody else that lost their life, young and old, out there in this music industry. What did you learn this year about music and the music industry?
Considering, I feel like it doesn't matter how. So with the Takeoff situation, I just feel like once you make it to a certain level, you should embrace that. You should embrace that, and you don't have to still be involved in things that you once were. And I say that
Or
meaning
maybe
like
not was.
or never was. I feel like a lot of times people think once they make it, they have to. And I believe in giving back. Absolutely, you got to give back to community. But always, even if you're not an artist, you just got to give back. But it
But not
doesn't
give
mean
your
that you
life.
have to. Exactly, it
Not
doesn't
give
mean
your
that you
life.
have to really be involved as much. You know what I'm saying? You can give back from a distance because now you have another purpose in life. I feel like once you reach a certain level, now your purpose in life is bigger than you. You know what I'm saying? Once you're given this platform and you're a celebrity and you're an artist and people want to hear your music and they want to see you as an artist and they want to buy your music and all, you have an obligation to just not be involved in all the things that are still going on behind this. You know what I'm trying to
So,
say?
so is it safe to say that you've learned now that the music industry is now a great liability?
It's a liability, but only if you move that way. Like, I feel like you can still be involved from a distance. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see so much of the Jay-Z's and the people that come from the streets in the streets, but that doesn't mean they're not giving back. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that they're not helping their community and they're not doing things for people because they know how it is.
Yeah.
But they're doing it from a distance because now their purpose is bigger.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Their purpose is bigger.
let me just say this because I believe that categories and Eric Sermon, shout out to Eric Sermon, my friend Eric Sermon. We used to always say, things like, categories. And we would always go around to like Sirius Radio and all these other radio stations. We're doing interviews and things like that. And we would always talk about categories because people have not understood hip hop as far as a breakdown. And in hip hop, you have a breakdown of different type of hip hop that people do. Everybody doesn't belong in everybody's genre.
Right.
So say hip hop and R&B, that's what they do. They put it hip hop and R&B. They put it together because R&B, remember, used to have its own lane before hip hop. R&B had its own lane from Motown. It had its own lane.
Right.
So what they did was they fused two together because it was commonly a black music. So I'm gonna say that they fused it together so that we would all get blamed for the same thing.
Right.
So now all of these deaths and things are going on. All that's on R&B too. It's on all black music. And I feel like when Janis Joplin shouldn't have been in Britney Spears' category, Britney Spears shouldn't be in Smith and Wesson's category. Everybody should have category. Like NWA should have not been looked at as R&B, because everybody fused hip hop and R&B together. Now, you have gangster rap, you have party rap, you have dance rap. There's so many different, you have conscious rap. Everybody should have been given a category. We would have stretched this thing out and now everybody would have been responsible just because we're black. or minority. You know, everybody wouldn't have got that staple on them. You know what I'm saying? So I think that right now it's time to bridge the gap between that as well. It's time to break this thing we call hip hop and R&B and separate it and break it down to categories where it can survive. So if rap music or trap music is causing people to die, why should R&B people be afraid? Because even in R&B now they're saying bitch.
Right.
And all these whores and snitch. They making songs because this is a dominant rap. You know, the trap music is dominant right now and it's controlling everything, but it's going downhill. Inside of the mechanics, people are getting shot. People are getting murdered. Unknown assailants are running around right now that have 3, 4 bodies on them. And nobody's telling.
Right.
Even the people who know who shot him. He's probably got kids. You know, they got mothers, they
Still
got
following
fathers.
the rules of the streets.
And now we're inside of the music is what I'm saying.
Right.
We're in the soul and the heart of the music. We are now the biggest genre of music. And we're killing each other.
Yeah.
At the height of our success, nobody understands what's happening. Gospel. You know, you have hip hop. You have R&B. You have all these different genres of music, blues, jazz. Everybody wants to do this type of music. There are no new artists coming up in different genres of music. Everybody's
It's
drawn
the
to the
same.
liability
Right.
because they want the fancy things, the fast life, technology. Let's get into TikTok. Let's get into Instagram Reels. Let's get into all of these platforms that are monetizing our creativity
Mm-hmm.
and giving us limited control once we post it and put it on there.
Yeah.
Giving us disclaimers and things like that, limiting us with our voices. But here it is. We're the foundation of all of that, but we don't own it.
But you have no control.
We don't own it. We don't own hip hop. Hip hop is never going to be dead, not as long as it's making all this money. And now what they're doing is putting life insurance on these
The
artists because they know possibility.
Absolutely.
He's going to get shot.
But they want you to keep rapping and keep talking all of that gang and keep drawing in the crowds and keep making the
Right.
money. But we're gonna put some insurance on you
Right.
because we know that what you're talking about can get you killed.
That brings me to the
Right.
next question or the next topic about the gospel. Why can't we teach these kids the gospel? Why?
Well, they gotta be. First of all, they gotta want to hear it, and they gotta believe in what they're hearing. So that's the thing. You can tell somebody something, you can try to teach somebody something, but if they don't believe it for themselves, because I went to church every Sunday because I had to. But when I moved out of my parents' house and I moved into my own place, I went to church because I wanted to. No one made me go to church. No one told me I had to go. I lived on my own. I got up every Sunday because I had a burning desire to now, as an adult, everything that I was hearing as a child and everything I was singing about, now I want to really know what it is for myself. Now I want to embrace it for myself. So we can teach them, but if they're not really receptive to hearing it and really trying to understand what we're talking about, it's not going to matter.
You don't have necessarily have to go to church to
No,
teach
you
the
don't.
gospel.
Absolutely not.
No, Jesus taught the gospel.
Absolutely.
Jesus taught the gospel. So, and at that time, no churches around. So this man walked among the earth and taught people and made miracles and made things happen.
Right.
So back to what I was saying about categories. Until we're able to define ourselves within these genres of music and separate ourselves from the negativity, because there are people out there making amazing music that will never get the shine that they deserve because somebody just got killed. It's making it worse for all of us because we're all in one category. So if we was to spread that music out, some of us will be able to get a little bit of relief because now if you market something or try to promote something, no matter if it's R&B, during Takeoff's, death,
Mhm.
it would have been bad because he took over the whole internet
Right.
because his
focus.
death was
Yeah. Big.
just that big. And it's sad to say we lost a good one, but at the same time, we have to stop allowing them to shut our machines down. We should embrace the youth and look at Takeoff's death not in vain, but look at it like an example to tell people enough is enough.
Mhm.
But if you shut our platforms down and want us to be sad and want us to be, revengeful and go out there and kill some more people, because I'm sure there's some upset people.
Right.
But this is the problem. We need to bridge that gap and show people, hey man, we don't need any more of us ending up that way. Our foundation is rocky.
Right.
And the foundation that we have to stand on, people don't want to stand on it because it's too old for them. I sit here 51 years old, just put out my own jazz record, Dreams Distribution. Shout out to Dreams
Congratulations.
Distribution. Yeah, April 15th, sure did.
Right.
And
In
I went from
moments.
hip hop to jazz.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid to make a change because everybody feels they have to do, what everybody else is doing. There's not enough of us that want to take other routes. Even in the music business, I take a job as carrying bags. I took a job as an engineer. I didn't want to be an engineer.
Mhm.
I wanted to be a rap artist. I never made it as a rap artist. I mean, I felt like I was successful because success started at the point of creativity.
Right.
That's the foundation of success. So, with that being said, it's very hard for these young kids to understand, like going to church because I can't wear my chain. Why not? Let them wear his chain. Let them wear this flashy stuff in church. Maybe, you can get people to understand, but these restrictions that we have on gospel and church and spirituality, it pushes these kids away.
It does.
You look at these cartoons now. Snoop got a cartoon. Snoop got not a cartoon, but Snoop has this daycare show where he's a character, and that's cool because all the kids they love Snoop. Now they see him
he's
saying
relating.
ABCs
Right.
and talking about
Right.
1, 2, 3.
Right. You're
In
getting
his
them to
voice.
learn. You're getting
But
their
it's
attention.
in his voice.
Right.
It's so cool to the kids. This is what I'm saying. To my older people out there, okay? Hear me out. To my older people out there, we have to stop trying to force the older ways on the youth and embrace something they got and make it cool for them.
As long as they're learning the gospel.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be, well, you're not a Christian. Listen,
Yeah.
some of the biggest sinners
Yeah.
are in church.
Hey,
Okay?
what they say?
I'm just gonna say that. But at the same time, I think we have to kind of adapt to where we're at. You can still teach the gospel. You can still teach the foundation and accept them where they're at right now. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem. But again, people, as soon as Takeoff got killed, it's always, we got to stop this. We got to stop the gun violence. We got to stop. But what are people doing about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is
Well,
the actual
I think ultimately
action?
everybody wanted to stop, but there's so many different sectors in different cities that are operating without control, and the older people or the police just cannot be in every place at one time. I think the consequences people have ignored. They're giving these guys football numbers, and they're still doing it.
Right.
There are drugs out there that's killing people for taking one puff of it, and they're still doing drugs.
Still doing it.
There's people that are lacing things with fentanyl and laying out 5 seconds after they take a puff and they're still doing it. So we're at a point where there is no fear amongst our people. There's no fear. So that music was always a representation of spirit.
Mhm.
The music get into you, make you dance.
Mhm.
Music get into you, make you sing.
Right.
Music get into you, make you play. Right? And it's all because there's a spirit about it. So the spirit about music has been destroyed. And I'm here trying to save it. You know, I don't want to sound crazy when I start talking about the universe, but can you imagine a world with no sound?
No.
Can you imagine?
No.
So why do people not pay attention to how important the sound is? How you sound makes a difference. You know, they say you can make a difference through a mic and a speaker. We had voices back in the day. Dr. King was a voice. Imagine if they never gave him a speaker, a podium. Imagine if they never gave Malcolm X or Marcus Garvey, any of these people, these platforms. Oprah had a platform for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
We watched her
She did.
show for 30 years. And she was able to bring people on these shows, be a voice with her voice, be another voice with their voice. And we all looked at Oprah like she was making all the money.
Making changes. And
But she was also creating a platform.
Yep.
Bill Cosby brought us laughter. You know, so I'm just saying the foundation, you know, and that's what my show is about. It's about, you know, talking all that jazz with G Fields, you know, talking all that jazz is sort of a metaphor. Shout out to Stetson Sonic for making that record, talking all that jazz. Daddy-O, yeah, really great artist, you know. And when I say talking all that jazz, it doesn't necessarily mean jazz music.
I got
You know, the jazz could be,
Right.
you know, I'm talking all that stuff.
Conversation, all
Yeah,
of that,
man, let's
right.
get this conversation
Yeah.
going here. So fast forward a little bit, you know, because I know we're getting near that time, you know, because, you know, we hate to go when we on air, you know, but, you know, respect to the, you know, commercials and, you know, the staff and everybody and the producers, we got to make sure that, you know, we don't run over time. But I do want to give you an opportunity to express yourself with, you know, anything that you may want to know about, you know, anything that you have to say or anything you want to know about the music industry and you're curious about anything right now, just ask questions.
I definitely have learned a lot from my team. Definitely, I know that it's hard work and you gotta really want it. I mean, nobody's gonna do the work for you. I'm in the studio all the time, but nobody's making the music for me. If I don't put myself, you know, if I don't start making it, then it's just not gonna happen. But I think where I'm at right now, especially with the show coming out, Be Gospel, stay tuned, guys. I want to be able to do gospel music and R&B, and I think that is where I'm like, how do I? Because I look at the Mary and I look at the other gospel singers, and I'm like, okay, they're more modernized now. You know what I'm saying? Their outfits, their clothes. I'm like, okay, I can, you know, I can wear certain things and I can feel good and comfortable. They're not covered up with, you know, and their music is more, you know, I feel like they're trying to stay with what's going on with the other music, but at the same time, they still stay in that gospel lane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And I personally want to be that difference. I want to be that difference because gospel music to me is not. It's what I grew up on. It's whatever almost everybody grew up on.
But it's always a question.
It's a teaching. It's like you're singing through teachings and the gospel and things that you've learned. So why can't I? Both.
Because it's always a question of integrity when it comes to things like gospel, and it's a line that you cross when you're doing R&B, because R&B has now turned into a seductive sexual music.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to mix the two. So bridging the gap between that is almost impossible, because it's almost like you got to lower a standard. No one wants to lower their standards. No one wants to sweeten up the R&B. No one wants to, you know, overstep their boundaries with the gospel. Because again, like I say, people want gospel music for free. You may feel like somebody's trying to, you know, do God a disservice if they're charging for the music because they feel like the gospel music, but they not realize these artists put in the same time in the studio, they go in, they work, they got producers, everybody got to get paid. So it is the lowest income in lowest genre of music as far as income is concerned. If you notice, artists don't be super rich when they're gospel artists. Why not? We need to change that narrative. These guys work just as hard. You know, but they don't get the light, they don't get the shine because the stipulations. you know, stipulations. You know, when you could be over celebrating something, and if you're from a church, they've been like, "What are you doing? Shame on you."
But that's what I'm saying.
You know,
That's
but,
what I'm saying.
but that's what I mean about bridging the gap. It's like almost impossible. So you're saying that why can't you do both? I believe that you can do both in moderation. Now, what you could do is not be a face on one and be a face on the other, or not be a face on either.
Right.
Then you're limited to marketing promotions. So I'm gonna let you take that journey, and I'm gonna try to assist you as much as I can. But you
Okay.
know, it's gonna be a very difficult journey because just from my experience of music and being around the music business for as long as I have, I've never seen it happen.
But that's why we're bridging the gap, and that is
Yeah,
why we
yeah.
are making changes.
Yeah, but we have a narrative, you know. You know, there was a narrative, and you could always go against the grain, you know. But sometimes in business, now, if it was personal, I feel we can do whatever we want. But when it comes to business, we have to have a structure.
Absolutely.
So I think that, you know, slowly, you know, maybe you should, you know, gear towards the one that's more in your spirit,
Right.
the one you have time for, because sometimes, you know, you need more time for certain things than others.
Right.
So, you know, I just want to say thank you because we're going into, maybe we got about 9 minutes. So we
Got
can
9 minutes left?
continue to go on. It's been
I
a
know I'm
wonderful
not the only
conversation
one.
with
I
you.
mean, I know that other gospel singers, you know, have been doing it for so long, but I know that they want to be able to explore other genres of music. You know what I mean? And then again, it goes back to the foundation.
Mhm.
If the audiences that we are marketing to had more of the foundation in their spirit, more of the gospel in their spirit, they will respect the music more. You know what I mean? They would respect what they're putting out
Yeah,
there.
but you know, again, gospel has been looked at as so old, and the people who dress in church and gospel don't appeal to the younger people in R&B and hip hop. So I think the problem is just the way people carry themselves, you know, or the fear that people have that they won't be cool if they sing gospel music, or the people who sing gospel music feel like the church will turn their back on them if they go and do something or have to shoot a video with a sex scene.
Right.
And here it is, you the pastor's daughter, or the pastor's son, or the deacon's son. You know,
Right.
shame on you again.
Right.
You know, so I think, you know, those are some barriers that are going to be very challenging. But, you know, again, you know, everything is worth a try.
I'm up for the challenge,
You know.
G Fields. I
Okay.
really am. Because as an artist, you know, I sing R&B, but I promise you, I'm singing R&B and I'm getting a couple gospel songs in while I'm singing. Like it's never
Yeah.
me practicing just R&B out the day.
Right, right.
I'm definitely practicing R&B, and then I get something comes across my spirit, and I'm onto a gospel song. So, I mean, I'm up for the challenge. I'm up to
Okay,
see how
so
we can.
since we're talking about challenges, before we get out of here,
Okay.
I want to bring up one artist
All right.
that I feel like fit this conversation that we're having towards the end of this show. Kanye West.
Okay. Shout
Oh,
out to Kanye
shout out to Kanye West.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sunday school, what was it? Sunday.
That made me forget.
Kanye West. Sunday.
Sunday service.
Sunday service.
I'm here for
Okay.
it.
Sunday service. So, quick question. Sunday service. Kanye West coming from hip hop. Exactly what you just got talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He tried. He tried to come from hip hop to Sunday service. Right?
Okay.
Had a bunch of followers, almost looked at it as a cult. Did not last. Crashed and burned. Why do you think that?
People just didn't understand them. They didn't take him. Listen, I completely was okay with him transitioning. I was completely okay with him taking hymns and modernizing them because I felt it was something that was in his spirit. He was connecting his religious, you know, he was connecting that, and he wanted to make music about it because he's an artist.
Do you
Okay,
think he
so-
wanted to do that, or do you think that he wanted to just control people or take over or to do something because he could, because because he's Kanye West.
I mean, he is Kanye West. He does have the ability to do a lot of things that other people don't. So that could be part of it, but I don't know. I
Well,
don't,
money costs him to be able to do some of the things that
right.
people
And
can
when
do.
you have money, and that's why I said once you reach a certain point in your life, you have an obligation to, do certain things. But I think it was okay for him to want to explore that genre. I think it was okay for him, and I loved his Sunday services. I've
Yeah.
watched some of them.
Yeah. So
Why
so,
it failed?
so would you have gone to the limits of getting involved with Sunday service if your marketing and music was doing well in R&B and you had an opportunity to go and do Sunday service for Kanye West? How do you think that would have gone?
I would have did it.
You would have made that transition.
I would have did it because I listened to a lot of the songs that he remade, and they're hymns that I loved, and I loved what he did with them.
Do you
So,
think that would have been a better business move?
for me
Or-
personally,
no, not personal, business wise.
for him,
For you.
also for me personally.
Would you think that would have made a great business, made great business sense for you to do that? You're an artist, you're charting, you're doing well, you're doing R&B, and Kanye West is an influence, and I understand the positivity, but business-wise, would you have made that decision?
If I was an artist that was doing well, R&B artist, you mean R&B artist,
Yes.
and I'm doing well, and
Yeah,
I'm
I'm having
already
kind of sort of a hypothetical
Right.
conversation, 'cause
Right.
just trying to pick your brain.
I get you. Probably not at that time. Like if I'm already on a flow and my following and I'm doing great, but I wouldn't. I don't know. It's hard to say because again, I respect what he did. I loved what he was doing with the Sunday services. I felt like it was coming from his heart. It was something that was in his spirit, and I loved what he was doing with the music and how he was changing things up because I grew up listening to those hymns, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I mean, I know personally, my mom and her group that she tours with, they did a song for Kanye West.
Okay.
So I know that, you know what I mean, they were supportive of it, and
Okay.
they agreed with what he was doing.
Well, shout out to Kanye West
But
again. And then, on this show, we do not condone any violence, or we don't represent any type of anti-Semitism, whatever you call it. We don't get involved in any of that. We just
no,
talk
we're
about
just talking.
bridging the gap between
Right.
some things. And even though some of those subjects may come up, it's very sensitive to talk about them at this time because sometimes people are just misconstrued and they just take things and they flip it and they say and do whatever they want to do. And the media, and I have to say this before we get out of here, is very responsible. And you have an
For the
obligation
narrative.
as a journalist to tell the truth, find the facts, and stop exploiting people for the color of their skin or for how much money they got in their bank account or how much money they don't have in their bank account. To TMZs and all these other platforms, nothing against y'all, but come on,
Right.
let's make sense here. Let's not put out something just for the sake of notoriety or to be famous or to gain. Everybody's looking to gain, but I just want to say this: there are no losses in life, there are no gains, only an experience. Take off left here, and now all we can talk about is his journey.
Right.
Don't matter how much money he had, don't matter how many chains he had, don't matter how many countries he traveled, no matter how many good things that he's done. It don't matter no more. So all you have is an experience here. So people need to stop and make their experience the best experience they can.
Absolutely.
And you do not have to conform to all these things. People say stuff like, well, you live every day. You die once. Yeah, you die once, but you live every day. So you have every day to live.
Mhm.
You only die once. You're only going to die one time.
Right.
Why not make this journey while you're living the best journey you can?
And you should.
Why all this destruction? Why? That's not the bridge. You want to build a bridge so you can get over it.
Mhm.
And that's what we do here at the Bridges Hip Hop. Jazz with G Fields, man. It was smooth talking to you.
Yes.
And if you want to tell everybody where they can follow you, you know, you can go right ahead and do that right now.
So you can follow me at I Am English on IG. And if you're looking for some catering, some food, you can follow me at New York South Taste.
Shout out to New York South. Taste Soul Food with Big English.
Absolutely.
It was great talking with you. The Bridges Hip Hop, man, jazz, and talking all that jazz with G Fields. Shout out AMS Dreams Distribution, G Fields Music.
Thank you for having me, guys.